Hello everybody, it's Michael from Replica Airguns, and today I'm answering another question. You might wonder where all the gun reviews went. Well, there just haven't been really too many guns to review lately. We're kind of waiting for some of these SHOT Show guns to come out, and generally speaking, guns are introduced in January at the SHOT Show, and then sometime in the spring, it can be early or late spring, these companies will slowly start releasing these guns that they introduced back in SHOT Show. So I'm still kind of waiting for some of these guns to show up, waiting for a Numerex order, waiting for some other products from ASG, different things to come in so that I can review them for you. So in the meantime, I'm doing my best to answer a lot of these common questions that I get, things that people have brought up, some things that I've thought myself. And so today we're looking at what's better, plastic or metal replica air guns. And it doesn't have to be replica, but I mean, we're kind of covering the replica side of things because in general, people are kind of looking for realism in the guns that we generally talk about. So that's why we're sort of entitling it replica air guns. But some of this will cross over just into everyday other types of guns, even just target guns, what have you. Alright, so right off the bat, let's talk about real guns. Now, a lot of the new modern guns are made out of a combination of both materials, plastic and metals. In most cases, real guns are going to use gun steel or hardened steel as opposed to just metal. I mean, it's metal, but it's a hardened steel, can handle a lot of high pressure and heavy use. And also, most modern guns today are made out of lightweight and compact materials. You know, back in the day, guns were made out of solid steel. They were pretty heavy, up to 3 pounds or so for a pistol, like a 1911 or larger. Some of these guns had some serious weight to them. The old Beretta 92s, lots of weight, heavy guns. But nowadays, they're incorporating composite materials, polymer, plastics, aluminums, and of course steel where it needs to be. But the idea here is keep the gun light so that you can carry it around a little easier. It's not going to be a big weight weighing you down all day, especially for people that need to carry them for their jobs or for safety or security. Now, on the other hand, you have the replica airgun buyers. A lot of my customers, a lot of my followers, and myself included, who we want that metal heavy feel. We want that clanking sound. We want that weight in our hands, right? And sometimes maybe we're asking for something that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So do air guns really need to be made out of metal to be realistic or authentic? Well, let's talk a little bit about the metal that's used in air guns because this might enlighten a few of you. Now, most of the time with replica air guns, airsoft guns, blank guns, what have you, you're going to find that the metal isn't the same quality that you would find in a real steel gun. It's not going to be made out of hardened steel that you would find in most real guns because air guns, airsoft guns, blank guns don't require high pressure. They don't utilize high pressure. You're not pushing a huge bullet down a barrel. You don't need a massive charge to do so, so you don't need hardened steel in the barrel and in the slides and different areas so the gun won't explode in your hand essentially. Especially with BB guns and airsoft guns. There's very, very little pressure going on there. And so they use things like zinc alloys or pot metal. So even though it feels heavy, it feels like steel, it really isn't steel, it's a metal composite. Now keep in mind that these zinc or pot metal guns are just not as strong. They will break a little bit easier, they're going to scratch and dent a little easier, they're more prone to things like fatigue, all of that. Alright, so what are the benefits to plastic components? Of course, plastic is lightweight. Plastic is more flexible, so it will give a little bit. Now, I mean, there's good plastic and bad plastic, and I've seen some pretty bad plastic in certain products, but generally speaking, most of the air guns these days are using fairly high quality plastics. And so, if you drop them because they're lighter in general, and they're more flexible, when you drop a plastic gun, it just kind of bounces back, and you barely even see a scratch on it. That's another thing. You don't see scratches, you won't see dents, you won't see any of that, right? Because plastic, being that it's solid black, like if you were to cut through it, it will be black from the outer edge all the way through, whereas metals are typically painted. They're not going to be blued. The air gun, airsoft gun, blank gun metals are zinc alloy. They don't really blue properly. They're not going to spend a lot of money on bluing these guns. They just usually either paint them or powder coat them, and it's not a heavy coat. It will show scratches, it will show wear. So what are the benefits to metal components? Well, they give the gun a more realistic weight, feel, and sound, right? Get that clanking sound, the snapback of the slide. If it has a moving slide or blowback, you hear that release, the catch, all of that. Feels good, feels like a real gun. And in some situations, metal, again, will wear better than plastic because metal can be harder. Now again, it depends on the quality of the metals, and even in air guns they do incorporate steel components where they need to be, pins, screws, sometimes things like hammers, catch releases. Areas that get heavier use or have a higher force on them, in a lot of cases, even in air guns, will be made out of hardened steel. But not like the slide and the frame, and sometimes not even things like the hammer or bolts can be made out of actual steel. They could be made out of zinc, so keep that in mind. So what are the cons with plastic components? Well, some of the downsides to plastic components are they can be less realistic in weight, or when the slide snaps back, you're not going to hear that metallic sound that you hear from metal components. So weight, feel, and sound just isn't as realistic as when you're using metal parts. And again, metal on metal tends to wear a little better than plastic on plastic. Plastic parts will round and wear down a little quicker, especially when they're exposed to a lot of heavy use. So what are the cons of metal components? Well, we've kind of talked about it a little bit already, but they show scratches and they show wear a lot more because, again, the coating isn't very thick. And let me just kind of show you here. Best thing is just to give you an example there. Hopefully you can see that. Right on the edge there, this gun has not seen really any use, just putting it in and out of the box. And you'll see that these high spots right here are already showing wear. That's very normal for a powder-coated gun like this on a metal part. Now we'll kind of show you around some of these guns a little bit, just to sort of give you examples at the end here. And another con for metal parts is that the zinc alloy or pot metal parts can often break or snap or even wear a little bit easier. Sometimes even easier than plastic parts. So what do I prefer? Well, I prefer realism. I don't really put any of my guns through a lot of high usage. If I had a sort of day-to-day gun that I was going to use a lot, I would probably find something that mechanically is going to wear the best. I wouldn't be as concerned about necessarily having metal parts here and there. I'd look at the overall gun and look at the quality of the gun and factor that in more so than realism. But I prefer realism. I like to have metal parts where they would be in the real versions of the same gun. So if the gun has a metal slide, polymer frame, then that's what I expect in the airgun version. I like my replica guns to have similar weight and feel to the real guns. And again, if there's metal parts where they should be and plastic parts where they should be, the gun should have a similar weight and feel. Now I do like higher quality metals to be used in the mechanical parts, like the pins, the triggers, the hammers, barrels, screws, springs, catches, things like that. Anything that's exposed to more use or more force, I would hope that the company's using a higher quality steel as opposed to things like zinc or pot metal. Now again, I have no problem with plastics or polymers as long as they're using higher quality materials, not this cheap plastic that kind of gets brittle after a year or two. That's not the kind of plastic I'm talking about. I'm talking about, gun quality plastic like you'd find in the real guns. And a lot of air guns are using higher quality plastics these days too. Alright, so I've kind of covered all of the information. Let's just take a quick look at some of these guns to give you examples here. Now here's the SA-177, not available anymore. Looks a lot like a Glock. This gun has a polymer plastic frame, right? But a metal slide. It's not steel. It almost feels like it's a bit of an aluminum. Could be aluminum. It's not overly heavy, right? There's a metal magazine. This gun does have, now to the best of my knowledge, it looks like it's a plastic trigger, but it seems to be okay. I mean, there's plastic parts in it, but not a bad gun. Here's another gun, just like the real version. Polymer frame, metal slide, metal trigger. It looks like metal catches and different things in it, metal parts throughout. This is plastic here, but it looks like a lot of the parts are actually metal, slide catch. Not sure about the magazine release. It looks to be metal. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference actually. Okay. Now this guy here, H&K. Gun has good weight, to be honest, but the reason for that is because it's got this humongous, heavy, full-size metal magazine that weighs probably 1/2 to 3/4 of a pound. The gun itself is all plastic pretty much, or at least a lot of it is. Even the hammer, sort of a fake hammer, is plastic. The safety's plastic, this is molded in. The trigger is metal, it looks like. Or the magazine release looks to be metal. But other than that, most of this gun is plastic. A lot of the internal parts will be metal. But, it's pretty good. Once you put the metal magazine in, the gun has good weight. But unfortunately, Umarex is shipping them with plastic magazines now. Originally, they shipped with metal. gave the gun much better weight, and it looks really good. You'll notice no wear. Like there's no scratches, there's no wear in the high spots because the slide's plastic, right? So there's that whole thing we're talking about here with, the high spots wearing down and scratches and things. Not going to happen when you've got plastic in those parts. Again, another all plastic gun, and this gun pretty much almost the whole magazine is plastic except for this top part, but the magazine doesn't weigh that much. The gun weighs next to nothing. It looks good. It's going to wear well. Even if I drop this thing, it probably wouldn't do anything. It weighs it's like dropping a feather, right? So it's going to just kind of bounce off the ground, and you probably look at it and go, nothing happened, right? I mean, I can't tell you 100%, but got a metal hammer. The safety's plastic. The trigger looks to be metal. The magazine release is plastic, but overall, nice looking gun of Browning, right? Very, very close replica. I would have liked to see more metal in that gun because I would have liked it to have a realistic weight. So we're getting down to, we've kind of shown you this guy. This is the Beretta. This thing's heavy. It's all metal, metal frame, metal slide. Again, you got those high, you've got the wear on the high spots here. If I were to drop this gun, it's made out of pot metal, zinc alloy. Stuff's going to snap. Stuff's going to dent. Stuff's going to break. That's just, what's going to happen. So don't drop it, right? Treat it, it's a very authentic, realistic gun. It's fun to shoot. It has good weight. It has blowback. Is it gonna wear over a long period of time really well? Hard to say. Like, the parts in it aren't made, to the standards that a high quality real gun would be made of. But then again, this gun isn't overly expensive. It gets the job done. Another combination, we got polymer plastic in the slide here and a heavy metal frame, right? Or sorry, heavy metal slide of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what it is. We've got metal trigger, we've got metal slide catch release, safety's metal, hammer's metal. I don't know if it's steel or metal, I'm not sure, or zinc alloy, I'm not really sure. Hopefully they've used higher quality in some of the mechanical parts. But the frame's plastic, so a real 1911 is going to be a little bit heavier because it's going to have an actual metal frame. But today's modern 1911s incorporate a lot of different materials. They're not always necessarily going to have steel slides. They could be aluminum, they could be other different materials, right? The 1911 has come a long way, but the original 1911 would have been much heavier than this because it wouldn't have had any plastic parts like that in it. Then we have this gun here. This is sort of my last example, and I've done a video where I wore down all the little parts and things and gave it that aged look. And you know what? That's the other thing with a metal gun. The wear. You might want that look. You might want to have that kind of over time wear going on, right? So having a plastic side won't allow you to do that. Not as easily, not unless you're willing to paint it or make it look like it's worn. And this is an all metal gun, great gun, but here again, when you're looking at realism, what are you looking for? Realism, not just in weight and feel and the clanking sound and all that. This one doesn't have a lot of moving parts, so that's another thing, and that's a whole other video. But moving parts is another thing that people are looking for. And yes, you've got all metal in this gun, but not a lot of working parts. So there can be pros and cons even with guns that are all metal. Alright, that pretty much covers the topic of what's better, plastic or metal replica air guns. I hope I've answered most of your questions. And it really comes down to personal opinion. There really is no right or wrong answer here. You'll have to decide which one's best for you. Thanks again for watching another Replica Airguns video. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Username is Replica Airguns, and come on down to our ReplicaAirguns.com website where we have our Canada and US Replica Airguns online stores where we sell air guns, BB guns, pellet guns, airsoft guns, blank guns, knives, and other accessories. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.